All of the valve cover bolts loose, and you just want to make sure that they'll all do this. They all just kind of pop up and go back down, and that way you'll know that all the bolts are loose and none of them are stuck into the cylinder head. And then what you'll do is you'll carefully pull off the head and just set it over to the side. Don't turn it or anything like that. I know these bolts don't fall out, but you don't want to turn it over and have something fall into the engine that's not supposed to be in there. So then back over here. So I've already cleaned the top of the cylinder head. The mating surfaces is what they're called. So I've cleaned the mating surfaces. There was silicone originally here, and a little bit over here, and over here near the camshaft sprockets, and then I might have found some over here. And then what I use is just a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You can use brake parts cleaner if you want, and I do have that as well. And it's a really good cleaner to clean metal surfaces and take off residual silicone gasket or anything that you want to clean, carbon or anything. And so yeah, this is how it needs to look. It needs to be clean. I recommend using a shop rag, not paper towels, because you could get little pieces in there that will shred off the towel, you know, the blue towels or regular paper towels, and you don't want any of that getting into the engine. This is a VVT engine, so the galleyways for the oil are very tiny spaces, and you don't want to get anything plugged up in here. And you know, I do know that it would go into the filter, most likely would drop into the bottom of the engine oil pan and go down to the very, very bottom there. I do realize that, but still you want to be careful. You don't want to get any silicone in here. You'll want to use a vacuum. I've got a little Porter cable shop vac here that I used to anything that fell in, I sucked it out. So anything that goes in, you get it out right away. This is very important. Don't overlook this step. Make sure everything's pristine. You want it clean and nice everywhere around all of the mating surfaces. As you can see my finger moving around all around the outer edges. You want everything clean where the valve cover gasket is going to be touching. And I'll follow this up with another part. This is the top of the cylinder head where the valve cover is going to be going onto. And as you can see, I've put silicone around all of the depressions, all of the corners, all around, just a little bit, about maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe to just a hair more than that. At some areas, like on the very far corners, like here and here, maybe 1/4 of an inch or a little bit less than that. So that's how it all looks there. And I'm doing this to ensure that the valve cover will not leak. I've done these before in the past and have found that if you don't use a little bit extra silicone around the edges, it will leak. I've had them come back on me before, and I just don't want to get into that situation again and have this be a comeback, because I know better. So and then just make sure that the new gasket is in place and clean. The surface here all the way around is everything's all pushed in, and everything is all clean where this is going to touch the silicone. And then there's going to be a sequence that I'm going to show you on how to tighten this. This is directly from Mitchell On Demand, Pro Demand, that shows a sequence that you need to tighten them. And the specification, I think, is 74 inch-pounds. I'm going to put them at 65 inch-pounds just to be safe. This is a 2012. It's got 120,000 miles on it, so the aluminum is a little bit old. In my experience, I find that just a little bit under torque, like what I'm doing, is perfect, and you won't torque too much and put too much stress on aluminum threads, especially with steel bolts going into aluminum. And so yeah, I'll follow this up with putting the valve cover on and just show you the sequence in the next portion of this video. So I've got off camera, I've got to put the valve cover on and get the bolt started. So you'll get the bolt started and then I'll show you the sequence. Torque sequence, and the torque specification I'm going to use is 65 inch-pounds. So you'll need a torque wrench, a 1/4 inch drive torque wrench that can go to that setting. So 65 inch-pounds is what I'm going to do. Here is the sequence from Mitchell On Demand, right off of the Pro Demand website. And as you can see here, it kind of goes all over the place, and there must be a very good reason for this. And if you follow it to the T and do the Permatex silicone gray gasket maker that I use, then you shouldn't have any issues. So what you'll do is you'll use your nut driver, again with the E10 inverted Torx, E-Torx, with a bit driver, 1/4 inch drive. And then what you'll do is you'll follow the sequence 1, 2, it's just really hard to follow because it's so all over the place, 3, and so just look at the diagram to know exactly how you're going to do this. And then you just get them until they're snug, hand tight with the nut driver. So just an example here, you just turn it till it stops, and you don't need to use a second hand or anything. And what's going to happen is you're going to need to let the silicone set up for about an hour. And because this has a rubber gasket already, we're not making our own gasket, so you can get away with less drying times. If this were the gasket, which this isn't, but if you were making a gasket purely with the RTV or the gray silicone gasket maker that I'm using, which is what you should be using for any valve cover gasket, oil pan gasket, or timing cover type gaskets, anything like this. This is the best silicone gasket maker to use. And but yeah, if you're making your own gasket from scratch, then you're going to have to let it set up let it get tacky for a little bit, put everything together probably within 30 minutes or less, and don't snug anything down, or torque anything down rather. And then you'll have to wait for 24 hours for it to cure, and then you can put it to your final torque specifications. Most gaskets are not like this, so you probably will never have to do that on newer modern cars. So this is just how I'm doing it, what's worked for me. If you follow the sequence, torquing sequence to the T, then you should have no problems and you will not leak. So because this valve cover has such an odd shape, would be my best professional opinion guess on why it will leak if you don't tighten to the sequence. Normally you can get away with tightening from the center, moving your way out, but in this case, no. So you got to follow the sequence.